They told me I wasn't forgotten. Their voices were soft, almost trembling, as they wrapped their words in the warmth of memories. But I remember standing there, surrounded by their kindness, knowing they had no idea what I was hiding. Have you ever smiled while your soul screamed inside you? Have you ever been called loved, while your deepest truth stayed locked away behind your ribs, pounding like a drum, begging to be heard? Let me take you back. Not to the day everything changed, but to the moment before, when I still believed I could carry the weight alone. It was a rainy evening. The kind of rain that didn't just fall from the sky, it poured straight into your bones. I stood under the rusted street lamp at the corner of Wilford Lane, soaked to the skin, holding a faded envelope in one hand and a secret in the other. They were inside, all of them, laughing, hugging, telling stories I hadn't heard in years. The kind of stories that made you feel like maybe, just maybe, you belong somewhere. The window glowed with golden light, and I could hear them raise a toast. To the ones we miss, but never forget. A tear rolled down my cheek. Not because I felt forgotten, but because I knew I had become unforgettable for the wrong reason. They didn't forget me. They forgave me without ever knowing what they were forgiving. And that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes people forgive the version of you they built in their minds. Not the truth. Not the darkness. Not the moment you chose something or someone they'd never understand. You see, they thought I had disappeared. They thought I left because life got hard. But I didn't leave because I gave up. I left because I couldn't bear to watch them love a lie. I told myself the secret was better off buried. That telling them would only break them. That silence was a shield, not a prison. But every night since, I've heard it echo. Not in the wind, not in their voices, but in my own heartbeat. There was one of them, though. One person who looked at me differently when I walked back into that room weeks ago. She didn't say anything, not at first. But her eyes narrowed for a second, like she could hear something no one else could. Like she felt the tremor in my soul. And still, she hugged me. They told us you weren't coming back, she whispered. But I knew you hadn't forgotten us. Forgotten them? Never. But I had forgotten myself. The version of me who didn't have to lie. The one who used to laugh freely, not cautiously. The one who didn't replay one decision over and over again at 3:17 a.m. every single night. They all welcomed me like a prodigal child, like I had just taken a long, winding journey back home. But the truth is, I never really came home. I just returned to the scene of the silence. And now, as I sit in this room filled with familiar faces, I wonder if I told them the truth, not the surface-level one, but the truth that's carved into the very architecture of my heart, would they still embrace me? Or would the memory of me be safer than the reality? I breathe in deeply. The smell of roasted coffee, cinnamon candles, and home-cooked forgiveness fills the air. But none of them know I'm about to speak. None of them know that behind my steady voice is a landslide of pain ready to fall. They told me I wasn't forgotten. And they were right. But they forgot something else. I was never truly known. My name is Arian. To most of them, I was the quiet one. The one who never asked for too much, never complained, never stirred the waters. They thought I was the stable one, the calm harbor in a family full of storms. But the truth is, I learned early how to wear silence like armor. I grew up in a house where emotions weren't always safe, where love was loud one moment and gone the next. My father, a stern man with a heavy voice, taught us that emotions were best buried and mistakes best hidden. My mother, soft and apologetic, tried to cushion the blows with her gentleness, but even she couldn't protect me from the cold of expectations. I became the fixer, the one who cleaned up the messes my older brother made, the one who filled the awkward silences at dinner with half smiles and changed topics like magic tricks. I learned to read faces the way others read books. I knew when a question would lead to an argument, and when silence could keep peace. That kind of childhood molds you. It teaches you not to feel too loudly, not to dream too wildly, not to trust too easily. My brother, Cade, was the opposite of me.
Loud.
Reckless. charming in a dangerous sort of way. He didn't care who he upset or what he broke. He believed the world would bend to his will, eventually. And sometimes it did. But then one night, it didn't. It was a humid August evening when everything shifted. Cade came home bloodied, eyes wild, shouting about something that didn't make sense. A fight, a misunderstanding, a threat. My father yelled. My mother cried. But I watched in silence as a single decision was made that would ripple through every part of my life. Cade ran. And I helped him. I knew it was wrong. But I also knew if he stayed, it would destroy him. Maybe even kill him. So I made a choice. I covered for him. Lied to the police. Told stories that weren't true. Hid evidence I should have handed over. I played the role of the silent protector, the loyal brother, the fixer, even when I knew it would shatter me from the inside. That was my secret. Not just that I had broken the law, but that I had broken myself to protect someone who would never have done the same for me. In the weeks that followed, everything around me continued as normal. The town gossiped. My family mourned Cade's disappearance like he was dead. And I sat quietly at dinner, holding the truth in my throat like a swallowed blade. Eventually I left. Not because I didn't love them, but because I couldn't face the person I had become while standing next to them. Every smile felt fake. Every hug felt heavy. I couldn't look into their eyes without remembering what I had done. I disappeared for 2 years. No calls. No letters. No explanations. I told myself I was searching for peace. For healing. But in reality, I was running, not from them, but from myself. I wandered cities I had never known, worked jobs that didn't care who I used to be, and tried to forget the face of my brother as he slipped into the darkness that night. And still, even miles away, even in the dead of night, I could hear my mother's voice. You were always the one we could count on, Arian. If only she knew. If only any of them knew. There was one person, though, who haunted me more than anyone else. Her name was Layla. She wasn't family, but she might as well have been. She grew up next door. The girl with the wild curls and the questions that never ended. We were inseparable once. She knew the songs I hummed when I was anxious. She knew how to spot the exact moment I lied. And the day I left without a word, I left her too. That was a different kind of betrayal. Because Layla, she would have stayed. She would have fought. She would have helped me carry the secret instead of letting it bury me alive. I remember once she said, "One day, you're going to disappear, and I'll still hear your silence, louder than your words." She was right. I tried to write her letters. Dozens of them. Some explaining. Some apologizing. None sent. Because I feared she would look at me and see a stranger. Because I feared I'd see the same thing in her eyes that I saw in my own reflection. Disappointment. Now that I'm back, everyone is smiling. They hug me tightly, ask where I've been, and welcome me like I'm still the same Arian. But I'm not. And every kind word they offer is like a knife reminding me that they have no idea who they're embracing. Sometimes, I wonder if they want to know. Sometimes, I wonder if they'd rather hold on to the illusion than accept the broken truth. Because the boy who once kept the peace is now the man who kept a crime buried. Because the silence they praised was the silence that kept them from the truth. But I also wonder, could they forgive me? Would Layla? Would my mother? Would my father, if he knew I had betrayed everything he taught me, even if I did it to save his son? There's no guide for how to come back from something like this. No map for how to return when you've been changed by the very thing you thought would protect the ones you love. But I'm here now, and the past is no longer knocking at the door. It's sitting in the room with me, waiting to be spoken aloud. It didn't take long for the weight of my return to settle in. The first few days were quiet. Too quiet. Everyone walked around me like I was made of glass, fragile, sacred, or dangerous. Maybe all three. They said things like, "We're just glad you're home," and "It's been too long," but their eyes always had that question hiding beneath the surface. "Why did you really leave, Arian?" But no one asked it directly. Except Layla. I saw her at the old market, sunlight glowing behind her like some kind of divine warning. Her eyes found mine before I could pretend not to notice. And I knew I couldn't run anymore. She walked right up to me, no hesitation, no smile. "So," she said, arms crossed, voice calm but sharp, "do I get the real story? Or should I pretend you just needed a really long vacation?" Her words pierced more than I expected. I looked down, searching for something clever, but I was tired of clever. Tired of hiding. I didn't know how to explain, I admitted. "You didn't try," she shot back. And that was the truth. Layla wasn't interested in surface-level apologies. She wanted the rot underneath, the truth I had buried for 2 years. She deserved it. So, we sat on the same bench we used to share as kids. In silence at first. Then I told her. Not everything, but enough. I told her Cade was in trouble. That I protected him. That I lied to protect my family from collapsing. That the guilt chased me out of town like a shadow that kept growing. She didn't flinch. Didn't interrupt. When I finished, she asked, "Do you think he would have done the same for you?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The silence spoke volumes. That night, I went home heavy. My mother was waiting on the porch, her eyes soft with a knowing ache. She sat beside me without speaking for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "You don't have to carry it all alone, Arian." The words made me want to break. But before I could respond, headlights appeared down the road. A sleek black car rolled slowly past our house, windows tinted. It paused at the edge of the driveway, then drove on. It happened again the next night, and again the night after that. Each time, the same black car. Each time, the same slow crawl. It could have been coincidence, but something in my bones said it wasn't. One evening, I followed it. I waited just long enough, then slipped into my truck and kept a distance. The car led me out of town, down a stretch of road I hadn't traveled in years. Into the woods. To a place I thought had long been forgotten. An abandoned cabin. Cade's old hideout. The one he used when he didn't want to be found. I killed the engine and watched from a distance. And then he stepped out. My brother. He looked different, leaner, tired, weathered like he'd lived 3 lives in my absence. But it was him. And he wasn't alone. Another man came out behind him. Suit. Stern face. The kind of person that screams trouble without saying a word. They talked briefly, then both went inside. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Because every instinct told me I had stumbled into something far bigger than what I left behind. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Memories clawed at the edges of my mind. The lies I told, the weight I carried, the secret I thought was done growing. It wasn't done. It was evolving. And I realized something terrifying. Cade wasn't running anymore. He was planning. The next day, Layla showed up. She had that same storm in her eyes. "I need to talk to you," she said, urgency in her tone. She slid an envelope across the table. Inside were photos. Cade. The cabin. The man in the suit. "How did you?" "I asked around," she said simply. "Turns out, when you vanish for years and return with eyes full of ghosts, people start talking." I stared at the photos. My hands trembled. Layla leaned in, voice low. "He's not just hiding anymore, Arian. Whatever he's into, it's serious. And if you're still covering for him, it's going to eat you alive." I felt the words like thunder in my chest. Because I already knew. That man in the suit? I remembered him now. He used to come around our father's warehouse. Back when whispers of smuggling and dirty deals floated around like smoke no one wanted to see. My father denied it, of course. Said the business was clean. Said real men earned their money with their hands, not with secrets. But what if Cade hadn't just picked up where Dad left off? What if he took it further? What if I hadn't saved him 2 years ago, but unleashed him? That night, I went back to the cabin. This time, I didn't watch from a distance. I walked up, heart hammering like a war drum. When Cade answered the door, his face paled. "Arian." He tried to smile, tried to laugh it off, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. "You're in trouble," I said bluntly. "I'm in control," he replied. "No, you're not. You're dragging this family into something we can't come back from." You mean like when you dragged us into a lie? His words hit hard. I clenched my jaw. I lied to save you. I destroyed myself for you. And now you want to meddle? He sneered.
No.
I want you to stop before it's too late. Silence fell between us. Then he said something that chilled my blood. You think I haven't already passed the point of no return? There it was. The truth behind the smirk. The fear behind the arrogance. Cade wasn't just playing a dangerous game. He was in too deep. Tied to people who didn't forgive, who didn't forget, who didn't let you walk away. I left the cabin with one thought swirling in my mind. This wasn't just about protecting a secret anymore. It was about choosing a side. And for the first time, I wasn't sure whose side I was really on. Back home, the tension grew. I started noticing strange behavior. People watching from corners. Vehicles parked just a little too long near the house. My phone glitched. Calls dropped. Emails bounced back. Someone was watching. Not just me. All of us. I told Layla. She wasn't surprised. They're closing in, she said, and when they do, they won't care who's innocent and who's guilty. She was right. The secret I had buried was becoming a weapon. And I could feel it, the storm coming. The moment everything would crash down. It wasn't a matter of if, only when. And when it did, I would have to decide. Expose my brother or protect the lie one more time. Because the truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it burns everything to the ground. The town was no longer quiet. Whispers turned to murmurs. Murmurs into full-blown rumors. And I could feel it, something was about to snap. The balance I had clung to so desperately was shifting. One morning, I woke up to shouting. Police. Sirens. Neighbors gathering like moths to flame. I ran outside barefoot, heart pounding. And there it was. The cabin, Cade's cabin, was in flames. Black smoke clawed at the sky, like a curse. Firefighters wrestled to contain it, but the heat was too much. I scanned the crowd, desperate to find him. Desperate for a sign he wasn't inside. Then I saw him. Cuffed. Bleeding. Eyes hollow.
Cade.
2 officers held him, as another read him his rights. Layla stood to the side, her expression unreadable. She didn't look away from me. Not once. I pushed through the crowd. What happened? I demanded. One of the officers, Ramirez, a man who knew me from school, looked at me with pity. Anonymous tip. We've been watching the place for weeks. Smuggling. Arms, maybe more. He resisted. Tried to run. I turned to Cade. Why didn't you call me?
He just looked at me.
And whispered. Because you always clean up my mess. That broke something in me. The fire raged behind him, a metaphor too perfect to ignore. Everything I had protected. Every lie. Every sacrifice. All up in flames. They took him away. And I was left standing in the smoke of a brother I couldn't save. The days that followed were chaos. The news broke fast. Local man arrested in organized crime sting. Reporters swarmed the town. Cameras outside our home. The whispers grew teeth. Some said they always knew. Others pointed fingers at me. After all, I left right after the first incident. I covered for him. I returned just in time for the whole thing to blow wide open. I was guilty. Maybe not by law. But in the court of public opinion, I was on trial. Layla came by again. She stood in the doorway with a strange look in her eyes. You okay? She asked. I didn't lie this time.
No.
Not even close. She stepped inside and said something I'll never forget. You did what you thought was right. But right and good aren't always the same thing. I nodded. I think, she continued, you've spent so long trying to carry everyone else's consequences, you forgot how to carry your own truth. That cut deep. Because it was true. That night, I sat down and wrote everything. A full confession. Not for the police, they'd already built their case. But for the people. The town. The family. The ones who had every reason to question me. I published it in the local paper. Told the story from the beginning. Every lie. Every truth. Every impossible choice. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I just told the truth. The fallout was immediate. Some called me brave. Others said I should have been arrested too. But amidst the storm, something else happened.
People began to speak.
Other names came up. Other deals. Cade wasn't alone in what he was doing. The corruption ran deeper, wider. And suddenly, my confession became a spark. Investigations reopened.
People resigned.
Arrests were made. What I thought was the end became a beginning. Weeks passed. Cade remained in custody, awaiting trial. I visited him. The room was cold, sterile. But he looked lighter. "You told them?" he asked. I nodded. "Everything." He leaned back. "Guess that makes us even now?" "No," I said quietly. "It just makes us free." He didn't smile, but something in his eyes softened. The walls we'd built between us began to crack. "You know they offered me a deal," he said. "What kind?" "Less time if I give up the rest. And I haven't decided yet." I looked at him. Really looked. "Do what's right, Cade. Not what's easy." He smirked. "Now you sound like Dad." "I think," I replied, "that's the first time I ever wanted to." The town changed. It wasn't overnight. Trust doesn't grow back fast. But something had shifted. People started saying my name again. Some with anger. Some with understanding. But at least I wasn't invisible anymore. One evening, Layla joined me on the porch again. We watched the sunset in silence. She finally asked, "What will you do now?" I took a breath. "I'm thinking of staying," I said. "Opening the garage again. Honest work. Honest life." She nodded. "I think," she said, "you finally understand what home really means." I looked at her. The light hit her face just right. And for a moment, everything was quiet again. Not the silence of guilt. The silence of peace. In the weeks that followed, I began rebuilding. Not just the house. My name. My purpose. I met with the local school, offering to mentor kids who had brothers like mine or were brothers like mine. I spoke at town meetings. Not to gain praise, but to remind them that darkness doesn't always come in the form of strangers. Sometimes it's the face you know best. But healing doesn't come from hiding. It comes from facing it. One storm at a time. As the days turned to weeks, the town slowly began to heal. The scars of the past remained, but they weren't as sharp anymore. They were more like reminders. Reminders that no one is ever truly forgotten, no matter how much they try to hide their truth. For me, it was more than just about clearing my name. It was about accepting the past, the mistakes, the wrong turns, and the things I had buried deep inside. I had carried so much weight, trying to protect everyone else, only to find that in the process, I was suffocating myself. I had to let go. I had to stop pretending. But there's something I've realized. The truth isn't always easy to face. It doesn't come neatly packaged with answers or solutions. Sometimes the truth comes as a storm. Sometimes it hits you when you least expect it, shaking the very ground you walk on. But it also makes you stronger. It strips away the lies and reveals who you really are, who you were always meant to be. And that is where the healing begins. You might be standing at the edge of your own storm right now, wondering if you've made a mistake too big to fix. Maybe you feel as though the weight of your secrets is too much to carry. But let me tell you this, you are not alone. The truth has a way of setting things right. It may not be immediate, and it may not be painless. But in the end, the weight you've been carrying will lift. And you will find peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you will have finally reconciled with who you truly are. And maybe, just maybe, when all the dust settles, you'll realize that the one thing that never left you was the strength to face it all. The courage to stand tall, no matter the consequences. I'm not asking you to forgive. I'm not asking you to forget. But I am asking you to face it. Face the storm, the lies, the hurt. And when you do, remember that you have the power to rebuild, to redefine what matters. What will you choose? To keep hiding behind the walls of your own creation, or to step into the light and let the world see you for who you really are? The choice, my friend, is yours.